I'm good, thank you, and lovely to be here. You're most welcome to the Caregiver Gentle Warriors, and you are an accomplished warrior, and a fan over here. So let me just put a little thing about you. So Mugdha Kalra, for all of you, is here. Is a journalist by profession and founder of the children-led movement called Not That Different. And it is an initiative to include and inform that neurodiversity is not that different. Yeah, it's a wonderful movement. We will learn more about how she's begun it, why she's begun it, and how we can benefit from it. A little bit about her personal life. She is a journalist by profession, like I said, from Delhi, also from Bangalore, and currently in Mumbai.
Right.
So Mugdha also has a 12-year-old son, Madhav, who is on the autism spectrum. And we at Caregiver Saathi want to know her learnings and her growth and her journey caregiving for her child. So welcome, Mugdha, and please tell us something more about yourself.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anusuya, and thank you for giving me this platform. I deeply feel for caregivers because much before I became one, I was witnessing caregivers from a very close quarter, whether it was my aunt who was taking care of her husband, and they were living with us, my bua, and she was taking care of her husband who had liver cirrhosis, and then a very dear friend of mine who was taking care of a father who had Parkinson's. And then, of course, I got married into a family where my father-in-law was bipolar. And so I saw my mother-in-law's journey very, very closely as somebody caregiving and who had dedicated her life to caregiving. But there were certain things I picked up on this journey, but nothing prepared me for when I assumed that role. And life was really catalog perfect because I started my career way back in the year 2000 when news channels were just coming into the country. So we were at the right time, at the right place. And I was part of a very privileged coterie of news journalists who were trained by the very best to lead these news channels. And I had a wonderful career for 13 years. I went abroad to study, married a lovely man from the industry itself. And, we had a picture perfect life. And a lot of times people would say that you have done so well, you have ticked all the boxes, etc. And then Madhav came into our lives, and we were both very prepared for it. We were both wanting to have a child. We had him after 6 years, and it was a very planned pregnancy. We wanted him at that time. And my mother is an IVF specialist and a gynecologist. So, everything was falling in place. And here was this little boy, absolutely adorable. And we were just so thankful and grateful to God for everything. I still am very thankful and grateful to God for everything. And then when he turned 4, autism happened and we got the autism diagnosis. And yes, that's when life changed.
All right. So like you shared that you have seen firsthand a lot of caregiving journey, and how back in Caregiver Saathi, and our founder Bhavna reiterates always it's one of her favorite questions when you meet her, where she asks you, are you a caregiver? And some of us would say no, and she says no, everybody is a caregiver. She'd show us a picture of a family of people, and he says, who spot the caregiver? And you realize, no, each one of them is taking care of each other regardless of what the requirements are. But your journey has been extra hard, and I think we want to know from you how you have succeeded so phenomenally in this, because what you have done is setting a parameter and is motivating all of us. So we really want to know more about your journey, the challenges, your learnings, how you have changed. So let me begin with asking, you shared when it happened and when you discovered, what were the thoughts and, feelings that you were experiencing back then and vis-a-vis today?
Nothing prepares you for a diagnosis of this kind, right? And I always say, nobody reads What to Expect When You're Expecting a Special Child. Nobody reads that. There isn't a book written like that. So most of us want for our children to be healthy and happy and spirited. And that was all what we also wanted for our child. And initially when the diagnosis came, and this was around school admission time, we had taken Madhav for school admissions, and the invigilators were moving around. And one of them, perhaps a therapist who was part of this inclusive setup, and she mentioned to us that perhaps you may want to get your son assessed because he has social communication challenges. Now, Anusuya, I am a journalist. I have been in an industry wherein we are supposed to know almost everything, or should have heard of everything, right?
Right.
When she said, I preempted the word autism, not because I was noticing the red flags myself, but I was aware of something called autism. But what was autism? Even I wasn't aware of. And this is when I have lived in cities. I have worked in news organizations. I was reading a lot. I have studied abroad. But I mean, that's where I'm talking awareness in our country. So the first thing I did was, it was absolute shock. I was in denial. I was angry. I was angry at the fact that, somebody could tell in 20 minutes of being around my child. Whereas now I can look at a child and tell in 5 minutes if the child is neurodiverse or neurotypical. So that person was just doing her job, right? But I was upset. And I came back, and from there started my journey of coming to terms with the grief, because you have an idea of a child in your head. You have an idea of the life that you dream about, or you define your normal, right? You think how you're going to be as a parent, how you're going to be as a couple around your child, what are you going to do, and suddenly something like this is handed to you. Now, in our case, because we were in a bigger city, it was easy to go to people and get opinions. But because autism is not a disease, it cannot be cured. So, for instance, if a caregiver is in a role where they know that after the caregiving is over, the person is going to be fine, right? Or I just need to take care of them for this duration of time, right? Okay. But an autism diagnosis comes with a lifelong condition. So you are bracing yourself for a life-altering change. And it took us a while. My grief cycle was very different from my husband's grief cycle. My acceptance cycle was very different from his acceptance cycle. And we went through the motions. We went through anger. We went through denial. We went through blame. I went through guilt. Perhaps I worked too much in my pregnancy. Did I eat right? Did I delay my pregnancy? Could that have caused autism in my child? But again, causing autism. Autism is not caused. You're born with autism, right? So it is. So I think the acceptance bit took a while, and it wasn't easy because we around then moved cities as well. We came to Bangalore. soon after, because, and it was a gradual progression because my husband was moving cities with his job. And so we moved to Bangalore. And in hindsight, I think it was really good that we moved to Bangalore, because in our country, Bangalore is perhaps one of the best cities in terms of therapeutic intervention options available. And also, perhaps if I would have stayed in Delhi, I would have had a huge support system, which could have led me to depend on others and not understand what I was going to be dealing with. So in a way, it was great that we moved to a city where I had little support, because I quit work. I was my son's driver. I was his nanny. I was his mom. I was his part-time therapist. And really, it was that time with him that was a time to grow and accept and understand for both of us. And I was trying to understand and make sense of the diagnosis, how it's going to change my life, how, and for those three, if I would have done multiple things around that time, perhaps I wouldn't have understood autism and the autistic life as deeply as I understand it now. I think I needed that 3-4 years time to come to terms with everything and, you know, celebrate the autistic life as well, that we are different, we are happy, and it's not a disease. Yeah, so that was Bangalore.
And the way you are accepting, and you know, you say that you left Delhi, which had a lot of support network, and that in a way helped your journey. So kudos to you for, you know, taking it on a challenge and understanding that it's made you better, and not repent that it made it harder for you. So amazing, you know, proud of you. Tell us now how you, you know, how you feel about it, and what would be your advice to a parent who is now going the diagnosis?
I think one of the first things that I tell even the therapists when they are talking to a parent and handing them a diagnosis,
Yes,
be gentle, is be kind, is to also ascertain from the parents' mental health point of view where they are, and are they ready to accept the diagnosis as, oh, your child has autism. Because most parents, they go and they Google autism, and very few of them understand that it is an autism spectrum disorder. So autism spectrum means that there is profound autism and a severe autism. Then there is autism, which is the Savant syndrome, which is on the other end of the spectrum, where you have a high functioning child. And between this, you have all the people who are with invisible disabilities. And it could be that it is a regular difficulty. It is a regular difference in perhaps learning, or it is a disorder, but a condition that can be managed. So I always tell therapists that, you know, be a little gentler and kinder while you are giving the diagnosis to parents, because when they are overwhelmed, and when depression hits or when anxiety hits, at that point in time, the caregiver is already going through so much that perhaps helping the child at that point in time seems like a chore. A lot of parents resent it. A lot of caregivers also go in a space where they resent their lives. They resent the fact that this has happened to them. In a lot of families in India, it is the mother who gets the blame. So it is very important to figure out how to give that diagnosis.
right.
Should you say the child has development delays? Yeah, perhaps. You can say the child has development delays. Iski speech thodi slow hai, aap isko therapist ke paas leke jao. Instead of saying that he has a sensory processing disorder or he has autism, perhaps he may not be able to be verbal, you know, go to a speech therapist. Figure out if the parent is ready for that diagnosis.
I understand totally. So I understand, you know, because when I was reading about your interview, when you said, when the teacher said, so he told you in the admission, would you like, I would recommend you get a diagnosis done. And I was wondering of how it could have been said without being so offensive. So I really appreciate the way you're sharing that instead of giving it as a rejection of not one of us, and to more maybe, and that would not be just to parents whose children are falling in the spectrum, but to everybody, going about it and getting the awareness of such a thing exists, and sharing it is as one of the possibilities, and not passing the diagnosis in the first instance, right? Like you said, that he might have a difficulty or delayed response to something, instead of giving a diagnosis in the first very moment.
Yeah, Anusuya, what happens otherwise is the child ends up becoming the label. He sees us being your child.
Yeah.
You start looking at him only from autism lens. In fact, a very interesting fact is that you'll meet a lot of therapists and psychiatrists now who have stopped using the word autism. They use autism spectrum disorder. It is only in the self-advocacy community that people say that I am a proud autistic, or I am autistic, I have autism. But the doctors and the psychiatrists are talking about the spectrum today, because not one person with autism is like the other person with autism.
Yeah, and we're all different, right? So boxing into and calling it a diagnosis would be wrong for everybody. We're all different people, differently abled. So thank you for sharing with us and informing us of how each one of us, and I'm proud to say, I have 2 teenage girls, and speaking to them, they're definitely a better generation than us when it comes to acceptance. And I'm proud of your work. So tell us more about Not That Different, and what challenge kind of, I can see it, but I want you to paint us the picture of how how that happened. What challenge led to that?
I think one of the things that was a catalyst in this entire journey was acceptance. And because I was a journalist, I started working at 19 years old. So for me, not working those 4 years and was very disturbing as well, even though it was a conscious decision. But we had also moved to a city where, for a person from my industry, there weren't many options. Also, one of the things as a caregiver that happens to most of us, and especially mothers, is you stop dreaming about your own career. You stop dreaming about your own self. And again, I come back to the same thing that as a caregiver, you have to understand, especially a caregiving mother of a special needs child, you have to understand that this is a lifelong condition. You have to be happy, you have to be fit, you have to be fine in order to be able to take care of the child or help the child in achieving their best. And so you need to also take care of yourself. And for that, if you feel you want to have your own life, or you want to have your own career, you want to be doing things, you want to be stepping out, you must do all of those things. And but quite frankly, I went through my journey where I went through anxiety, and I went through my days of lows where I thought, perhaps, this is it. I have put all the good years behind me, and perhaps I'll never be able to work. And these were the questions I went through. And in those 4 years, I had accumulated so much knowledge of from reading, from speaking to people, from trying to make sense of what is autism in a very journalistic way as well, that that one day I was like, what am I doing with so much? Let me start putting it somewhere. And that's when my first blog happened. And this was way back in 2014, 2013, 15. And I wrote this blog. And I wrote this blog as just a venting. And in 24 hours, it was read by 5,000 people. And there were so many people who wrote back. And that was my first moment of that I'm not alone. That I'm not the chosen one for this, you know. There are several parents like me who have the same questions, who have gone through the same thing, who wrote to me saying, hey, I felt exact same thing as you. And that's when I felt this is collective humanity. These are people, these are my people. You know, they know, they have been through this. They were senior parents who wrote to me saying, you know, Mugdha, you're doing a great job, but it does get better. So don't worry. That for me was my moment of recognizing what it means to be in a support circle, what it means to be in a support group, what it means to be in the same boat as those who have, you know, we are all in the same boat. You can expect your family and your friends to understand, but you know, the real, they can have, you know, they start with compassion, they start with sympathy, but empathy development takes time. And here you already have people who know exactly how you're feeling. So that is the reason why I realized that the support group was very important. From there started the journey. I started a support group. I joined several support groups, and we figured that life becomes easy, the struggle becomes easier when you have people guiding you, when you have people telling you what went right for them, what didn't go right for them. And so we made this community of ours. So we had all of these people, you know.
This is amazing because, you know, in a caregiver's journey, normally, like you said, the mother takes the blame, and you look back and you repent and find of what you did wrong or why me. These are very typical caregiver emotions, which serve absolutely no purpose.
That's
so
true.
Amazing learning here is that the moment you talk about it and you venture, which you did, and maybe, you know, inspired from your professional life before, of when you got into the 4 years of research, and when you talked about it, and when, you know, got into these other circles, you began with accepting, number one, yeah, what it is, and not just why me, and it's only me. And when you find camaraderie everywhere, right, it's a better world. So putting it out there and talking about it may be one of the most strengthening behaviors for a caregiver.
I think it's easy to say nobody will understand me. It is easy to say, but I may not find help. But you do find help if you talk about it, if you seek help. You do find people who will understand you. I very, very deeply feel that the world is made of good people. And I always look at my glass more than half full, you know. So I always say that, you know, if you want to find people, birds of feather flock together. If you are positive, you will find positive people around you. If you want to seek help, you will find people who are ready to help. But the important question is, are you ready to accept that you need help?
Was that a challenge?
It was a challenge because
asking for help, or
yeah,
agreeing to yourself that I will ask for help.
Also, I think from a place where I was coming, where, you know, I was sort of a role model in the family about doing a career, having, ticking all the boxes at the right time. And so, you know, I was suddenly at a place where I felt if I will ask for help, I may not be I will give an impression about myself that I'm not perfect. You know, your own impressions of yourself, you know, are everything. I mean, the diagnosis comes not just for the child, it comes for the entire family, right? So you start questioning your own existence. And, you know, a lot of parents hide their children because of these things, because they want to portray a perfect picture of a supposed perfect picture of what happiness looks like, or what perfection looks like, right? And so seeking help becomes difficult, right? I mean, and when you know that it might just help you.
Because it's accepting your weakness.
Correct.
And but you can't move on till you accept, like you said, right? The first step is acceptance of whatever's come your way.
Most challenging, especially in Indian families. You know, Anusuya, that's the reason why we have such a huge data deficit in our country about the number of children in the autism spectrum. Because parents are hiding these kids. They are not, and of course, because they are hiding, because they do not come out, because they do not report the cases, there is never a census done for autism spectrum.
And then why the rest of the world doesn't know about it? Because
a person on a wheelchair is visible, right? A blind person, a visually impaired person is visible. You know, their disability is visible. And so the census happens. So, you know, in 2016, autism was added in the disability bill. It wasn't even counted as a disability. So how do you even go for advocacy? How do you even ask for things to the government when they say, but you know, aapki to number hi nahi hai. Who are you? We have many more people to take care of till the time we reach you.
So the acceptance really needs to begin from yourself, from public, from the government, from
absolutely
all the people.
But not that different when, you know, so not that different actually is actually for the neurotypicals. And my co-founders are not that different. Two moms who run this beautiful company called Bookosmia, which is India's biggest platform for creative expression for children. So kids from all over the country write letters, they write, you know, it's a platform for expression.
Okay.
And I was talking to her about social stories, as to how we use social stories. And she said, but you know, that is how we use it for neurotypicals as well. And that's when we started to talk. And we figured that our children are very similar to the rest of them, except for the sensory processing disorders, which make them extra sensitive to a few things. While another child, a typically functioning child, can handle them and control it, perhaps our children cannot control it because their brains are wired differently. But after having made a village of my own, the epiphany was that we keep saying, what after us? What after us? Right? And that is the single most important question that every parent who has a child with special needs fights with. What after us? Not that different happened because I wanted a world which will be loving towards my child. And so the onus of being nice, being understanding, being empathetic is on the neurotypicals. So we thought that Not That Different should be about neurotypicals, kids especially, because at that age, empathy can be developed versus being taught at an older age.
Totally.
And so we said that, you know, we need these people to help our children, and we will be the bridge. So this was actually coming out of the support circles and the supposed autism village, as they call it, like, you know, it's your own place, to actually tell the world that, hey, this is my child, he's neurodiverse. Do you want to learn about neurodiversity? Come, we will tell you how.
I don't know if this is a challenge or this is a learning or this is an accomplishment.
It is a challenge, yes, but it is a challenge from the point of view that somebody who doesn't have any connection with that kind of life, or they do not know somebody who is neurodiverse, may not be interested in learning about neurodiversity. I'll tell you from the point of view, you know, they say, why do you have to learn about a disease when you don't have it? Or why do you have to learn about something which you're not encountering? But the idea that we are propagating, or what we are trying to tell people, is that neurodiversity is at a rise. 1 in 7 are the numbers coming out from bodies in UK, and neurodiversity of all kinds, 1 in 7. Now you are going to meet a lot of people who are neurodiverse. You're going to be working with them. They could be your bosses. They could be, and depends on where, how neurodiverse you are. You know, it could be somebody who is leading an absolutely normal life, but the brain is wired differently. So you may be dating them. You may be married to them. You may be reporting into them. They may be they may be working with you. So you will encounter more and more people who are neurodiverse now and going ahead. And so it is only right for you to understand what neurodiversity. Also very important, Anusuya, if I would have back in those days had met neurodiverse people or had hung out with people who were autistic, perhaps when my child's diagnosis came, I wouldn't have been so much in shock and doom. I wouldn't have felt, oh my God, what has happened? Because I would have then seen people who are leading absolutely fine lives, managing their condition.
So in this journey, I find that, was that your biggest challenge?
Not knowing enough about autism?
Or, finding it difficult to, that of course, I don't think was one of your biggest challenges, but to try and include everybody in.
I think one of my difficulties was very functional, in the sense, how do I find inclusive schools? Because there aren't any. How do I then help my child learn at his own pace? So my caregiving challenges, practical challenges, are very different when it comes to handling Madhav, because there are not many interventions available other than therapeutic interventions, where you are teaching the child to be independent and lead an independent life. So the onus of helping the child completely falls on the parent.
So your support network in that manner is
limited. You get people support network, which is what happened to me in Bombay. When I came to Bombay, I wanted to get back to work because Madhav was settling down, and things tend to get better after 8, 9, 10. It is the initial years which have meltdowns, where you are trying to understand the child. The child is developing the trust, and all of those issues are happening. But post his 9th birthday, he was 8th, 9th birthday, he was settling down. He was ready to go to school, learning at his own pace, but he was ready. And that's when I thought, I'll get back to work. And in Bombay, I found help. I found help. I found people who were ready. I trained my helps. I taught them. So Madhav, so our driver, he teaches Madhav carpentry. The lady who comes to clean the house, she has taught him how to operate the washing machine. When the cook is cooking, Madhav helps her with chopping the vegetables. He can make his own papad and Maggi, and he can operate the microwave, etc. So these are people around you, and you tell them, you please help Madhav. So then, yes, the definition of caregiving sort of gets, they are my caregivers, I feel. They give me that freedom of being me and do my thing and go to work and be able to do other things. My mother-in-law is a huge support. After my father-in-law's death, she took Madhav as a project, and she's the one who handles most of Madhav's day-to-day needs. And yeah, so you find people, you find your support group, and that is what all the parents will tell you. That all the parents who are now handling career and life, they will tell you that, you have to create a village of yours. You have to have your support system. And that can only come when you're accepting and saying कि मुझे ज़रूरत है, मुझे help की ज़रूरत है, मुझे please help करो, मैं अकेले नहीं कर सकती. I need help.
So that's amazing. See, that's the challenge of accepting it, and the learning is that you don't have to do it alone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Also, because you can't do it you have to do this for the rest of your life. This is a condition, not a
for
disease.
everything, right? They say it takes a village to raise a child. So
absolutely, it is.
When you need extra help, when you are in, you have more work, you need extra help. And we tend to go the other way around, that when you've taken up the role of a caregiver, instead of needing more help because you've added on a role to your life, you tend to try to do everything on your own. And tell me about more of your responsibilities. You said you got back to work after 4 years. You know,
Yes.
how was that?
It was very interesting because see, as a journalist and especially as somebody who has been in the newsroom as a news anchor, you are supposed to be jack of all trades and perhaps master of some. So you never really develop your core competency. You research about everything, you read about everything, you are a philomath of sorts, and you're always perhaps reading and learning about various things. And I think that sort of seeped in because when I came back, it was also about switching industries. So, but my core competency was the on-screen work and writing. And so here I was wondering, where do I start from? So when I had quit as a very senior news anchor. Yeah.
Okay.
And a very cushy job, right? But when I went back to work after 5 years, I had changed mediums. And on my first assignment, which was of a documentary writer, I got back my script with red marks, all red marks. And I won't tell the comments that were written there, but it was as if I was back to being an intern. And at that point in time, I was like, do I want it that badly, that I want to start all over again? I think that is, again, a very key question that caregivers need to ask themselves, that do you want, because you're already so down and out with your daily routine that learning to do something new or getting back to work and having to prove yourself all over again, it can be a challenge.
So but how did you take care of yourself with that?
I think it's just about, I think it was also, my family was very supportive. And I think by that time I had lost all ego. There was no ego left. There wasn't, I think one of the, and I
ego, I would say, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
You lost something that was not needed.
That I always say that, that Madhav changed me as a person and for the best. He got so there's a word in Hindi called tehrav, like balance. And so he got that tehrav in my life. He got that balance in my life, and he taught me that there is nothing called perfect, and you may be thinking you're perfect, the world doesn't care about you so much. So it's just about your journey, what you want to do. Just don't think about what the rest of the world is thinking. And this is when when we were in malls and he would have a meltdown and he would be sprawled on the floor. And at that point in time, if I were going to think that what is the world thinking about me, I wouldn't have been able to help him. And at that point in time, I would give a damn about who's seeing me. कौन मुझे देख रहा है, कौन क्या सोच रहा है, मुझे उससे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता है. I'm just going to, I would sit cross-legged and on the floor with him. I would wait, I would massage him, I would wait for that frenzy to pass. So
I love the way you've put that. I was going to ask you, how did you manage a stressful situation? And you've just told me that Madhav is the one who brought that balance to your life. So I can no longer call it a stressful situation because he will give me the strength to go past it. And I need to do this for my child. And that's one of the things I keep telling people, that you have to take a stand for your child. You have to think what is important for your child. It cannot be, oh, I need to send him to a regular school because that's what my family wants me to do, or that's what the society around wants me to do. I live in a joint family. 5 kids from my family are going to that school, or my husband always went to this legacy boarding school. I need to send my child to this school because everybody went there. No, it doesn't work that way. So a lot of that understanding that, you need to do it for your child. And then you stop caring about what the world says. So when I was getting these scripts that were
dipped in red. I was just looking at it as an opportunity to learn. And then, of course,
priorities was so wonderfully placed and different from what they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
To what you wanted them to be and what was best for you and your family. So,
and what
how do you care for yourself in that situation? Are there not moments when personally, on your own, your personal identity, not as your role as a caregiver and not as a supporter and not as a career woman,
right,
but just for yourself? So I don't see any stress here, because you've just turned a stressful situation into a balance when you have forsaken, I won't say lost, I will say forsaken your ego.
No, Anusuya, I think the challenge is health. I think I neglect health because I sometimes prioritize Madhav, and then I prioritize my work. And then I sort of don't make time for health. And I know that is not right. Because, caregivers fatigue is real. And with us mums, what happens is, and that is something I experienced in my earlier years. And till now, I think, it happens, which is that when you have a condition that you're living with, कहते हैं ना, आपने समझौता तो कर लिया life से. So your samjhauta is that, okay, my child is autistic. My child has special needs. So on a daily, day-to-day basis, I am not going to mope about it. But my body is moping. My body is internalizing that stress. So I am shutting my brain. I'm telling my brain that, okay, I'm not going to, and I keep putting the stress behind. And the first thing I tell all the moms that I meet with new diagnosis or wherever they are, I ask them, do you have aches and pains? Does your shoulder hurt? Does your back hurt? Get your vitamin D checked. But in spite of that, are you feeling aches and pains? And that
psychology goes into physical.
There's a beautiful book called The Body Keeps a Score. And it talks about how body stores trauma. I mean, it talks from the trauma point of view, but trauma for some people can be intense trauma, and trauma for some people could be the daily trauma of daily life itself, depending on where in your mental health journey you are, and your body then starts to keep a score of it.
So I'm going to now invite you. I'm sorry, I'm cutting you short here. Because I'm seeing you doing, you've got things in the right place, and anything that is not progressive and useful and purposeful, you have very nicely recognized and taken it out of your life. And I'm going to invite you here to share with us, and we will be the witness of what you want to do for your self-care. Because I hear a little bit of what you're not doing. So tell us now, what are you going to do to take care of yourself?
So my husband and I, we joke about it. We have a love-hate relationship with weight gain, but we have made it a part of our lives. The kilos are part of our life, so every year we go through a cycle of putting on weight, shedding the weight, putting on weight, shedding the weight, depending on where in life, work-wise we are, grief-wise we are, all of those things. But I do feel that also, I think one of the things, Anusuya, that happened to me was productivity addiction. And I'm very, very now recognizing it, because I lost my dad last year. And my coping mechanism for grief was being a workaholic. So I drowned myself in work, and I did not give myself the regular day-to-day time to grieve. Although grief, I now realize, is something that, it doesn't go, it gets better. So it will never leave me. I know that. I'll just get better in handling it. But at that point in time, I think I just handled the grief with a lot of work. So now I have gotten used to productivity addiction in such a way that, I need to tell myself that, all right, at 6 o'clock, I need to put my pen down.
So rule number 1 is 6 o'clock. Shut.
Yes, but, make time for any form of exercise. I'm and get rid of this. I'll start on a Monday. You can start on a Sunday. On a Monday afternoon, I'll be like, I'll start next Monday because it has to be started.
Tomorrow never comes. So right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that is one thing I really, the other thing I also feel as a caregiver and as a caregiver for a caregiving parent, I think it is very important to recognize that maintaining your health and taking care of your health is not a luxury, it's a necessity. Because we go back to asking the same question, what about our child after us? So you need to live long for your child. And that can only happen when you're taking care of yourself. So whether it is
even with as a caregiver, but you are doing specific things for yourself and getting aware of them, like you said in the beginning, and acceptance with everything, with what's coming your way or what you have to do. So beautifully, and I'm holding you to it. We've got you on record now.
Oh yeah, I have to.
You can't tell anybody else that you are working at 7
I'm publicly committing to it so that my shaming is also public. That they say that for doing this, just go right on your Instagram or Facebook. I pledge I'm going to lose 20 kilos in 2 months with your weighing scale right there.
No. I won't give you into numbers, but I like the part where you are giving yourself, some precise goals and accepting that you don't do work and you wouldn't, and you put yourself little steps of stopping work at 6 o'clock and doing something for yourself.
But Madhav as well, one of the very good advice that a therapist and doctor had given to me, and I went to her and I asked her that, what more can I do with my child? And she looked at me and she just said, stop being a therapist. You're a mom. And I think that was a great advice because as caregivers of special need kids, we think that every breathing, living minute of our time should go in teaching something to the child. And the child also starts to resent it. So I think that's also very important. Just be a mom. Just take the stress off your shoulders that you have to make every living moment a teaching moment for your child. He can just be, I sometimes feel when he is hanging out in the evening with me, I'm reading a book or I'm watching something on my iPad and he's just lying there to me and I'm like, should I be teaching him something? And then I'm like, अभी मैं उसको क्या सिखाऊं? अभी मैं उससे क्या बात करूं कि वो सीख ले, नया word सीख ले, नया कुछ सीख ले. And then, I'm like, maybe, he just needs to be there. He just needs to be in my company and just
all of you need to do, both of you rather. So thank you so much, Mugdha. This has been an amazing conversation, an amazing journey, and kudos to you and all the best.
Thank you. Thank you.
Keep doing what you're doing. And I hope all your small time goals and everything, I hope you get a power cut at 6:01 and then comes back at 6:02. That's our way of helping you, ensuring you don't get back to work too much. Take care of yourselves and lovely speaking with you. Thank you for sharing this wonderful work that you're doing. Great, lovely to be here.
Thank you. Thank you, Anusuya. Thank you so much.
All the best.